Thank you. So welcome everyone. Today is October 27th, 2025. It's approximately 10 o'clock a.m. And welcome to the October 27th hearing of the Boston Parks and Recreation Commission. I will open the hearing and start with introductions. My name is Kathy Baker Eclipse. I'm the interim commissioner for the Parks Department. And if I can have the associate commissioners introduce themselves for the record.
Good morning, Gene Ballinger.
Good morning,
William
Hugh
Epperson.
Washington.
I think we all jumped in at the same time. William Epperson. Good morning, folks.
Morning, Jessica Pierre.
David Quealy.
Commissioner Couts, were you able to introduce yourself? Oh, you're muted. You are still muted. Oh. There you go.
I'm sorry. Good morning, Sandra Couts.
Thank you. So I think, and I'd also like to introduce, have Carrie, Executive Secretary for Parks Commission, introduce herself.
Carrie
well.
Marsh Dixon.
And is Jill Zick with us as well?
Trying.
Oh, there she is. I don't think I can promote her. And it's Jill, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself for the record. Nope, can't hear you. Still can't hear you. I'm happy to introduce Jill for the record while she sorts out her microphone issues. Jill Zick, interim chief landscape architect for the Boston Parks Department, is here as well. Nope, still can't hear you. Okay, we'll keep working on that. So I think the first item on our agenda is a vote to approve the addition of a dedication plaque to the basketball court at Titus Sparrow Park in the South End for Michelle Ice Williams. Are the proponents promoted to be able to present? Pamela King looks like she's able to join us. If you can just test your audio.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
All right.
perfect. Is there anyone else that we're waiting for? Bianca Clark, I think also is, I see her in the presenters.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. All right. Anything, Carrie, anything we need to do first for that?
No, you just read the vote, so you're
Okay,
all
great. Thank you. So the floor is yours.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. So we, Bianca Clark, myself, and another of our team, Cheryl Williams, we came together at the time when the basketball court was being renovated at Titus Sparrow. Well, the whole park was being renovated. And, Cheryl says, well, why can't we dedicate a plaque to Michelle Edwards, who grew up there, who played there. And so we decided to come to the city and see how we can make this happen. So a little bit about Michelle. Michelle Ice, in quotes, Edwards. She's a Boston South End native. She's one of the first women to play in the Women's National Basketball Association. And as a youth, participating in local basketball programs, she honed her skills at our beloved Titus Sparrow Park, earning her an impactful professional career in basketball. And in 2014, her amazing talents and accomplishments were recognized and inducted into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. The other thing, she was also a student at Cathedral High School in the South End, and where she was also inducted into their Hall of Fame as well. So we're aiming to foster inclusion and representation in our public spaces. Adding the Michelle Edwards plaque is an impactful symbol of representative for locals and aspiring youth athletes. So we thank you for considering. Also to let you know that the Titus Sparrow Association is also on board. They also helped us to get signatures at some of their summer outings. And Michelle is also honored that we are considering her. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Clark, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, there isn't. Thank you.
Okay. So I can see that the commission was provided with several letters of support, including support from several city councilors and also the district councilors as well, and the Friends of Titus Sparrow Park, neighborhood associations, and a list of and petitioners supporting it. So I think there's quite a bit of documentation in this package that I think all of the commissioners were provided as well. So are there any questions from any associate commissioners? Not hearing any. Are there any questions from the community? You should be able to raise your hand and we would be able to see your raised hand. So if there's anybody in the community who would like to speak to this item. And I'm not seeing any hands being raised. I would like to entertain a vote. Would someone like to make a motion?
Happy to make the motion to approve.
Thank you. Any seconds?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Any abstention, please state your abstention. So this vote to approve the addition of a dedication plaque to the basketball court at Titus Sparrow Park in the South End for Michelle Ice Edwards is approved. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. King.
So the next item on our agenda is the Parks and Recreation Commission on behalf of the City of Boston. The acquisition of a parcel of land for the purpose of providing a park in accordance with Article 97 of the amendments to the Constitution of the Commonwealth. It's a parcel of land located within Copley Square Park. And if it looks like Kate and B have both been promoted to be able to present. Kate, are you able to, do you have a slide deck, or B, do you have a slide deck? Anything, and no graphics? Okay, great.
There is a slide deck, I think. I think Kate has it.
Yes, sorry, getting brought up to the screen. Oh, I need to be enabled to share my screen.
Are you able to, share your screen, Kate?
No, it's disabled. I need you to enable me to share it.
Okay, Michael, are you able to enable her video? I mean, her ability to share her screen, rather, sorry.
I'm not seeing that as an option right now.
Carrie, it looks like you're the host and maybe the only one who can do that.
Michael and I are co-hosts, so let's see. Show me where I would do it then. Tell me where I would do it, Michael.
So if you click to the right on the top right on Kate's screen, you see the three circles.
Yep.
You just click on that, and then there should be you should have permission to enable host to share the screen.
Fortunately, that is not an option that I see. How about if I make you a host? Does that work, Kate?
Yes, that does.
That can be an
work.
option, yeah.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen? It should
Yes,
be.
we can.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. So hello, everyone. I'm Kate Otheimer. I'm the senior planner with the Boston Parks and Recreation Department. And Bea Chatfield is also here. She's the project manager for the Copley Square Improvement Project. And so today we are talking about what is known as Parcel F, which is a small sliver. It's outlined here in green within the larger Copley Square Park, which
Hey.
is outlined.
Kate, we can only see the title slide.
Oh. Let's see. Can you still only see the title slide?
Well, now I can see me in the title slide.
You can see you. Oh, okay. Can you see the next slide now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Kathy. So we're talking about Parcel F, which is outlined here in green within the larger Copley Square Park, which is outlined in red. It is the entire park. Well, most of the park was acquired by the Parks Department in 1968. Except for this small parcel F, which is still owned by the Public Works Department. It's the portion of the park that is like directly outside of the entrance to the Trinity Church. And when the streets were converted to the park, this parcel was supposed to be transferred to the Parks Department, but because I guess of the urgency back then to start construction on the park, for whatever reason, this particular transfer never happened. And we discovered this oversight with a title report that we did prior to the current Copley Square Improvement Project. And so we're trying to rectify that oversight and to make sure that all of Copley Square is protected as a park. And so this is just, you can sort of see here, the area before the improvement project was paved in brick and included a plaza. So there wasn't really any clear delineation of the parcel in question to point out, but it was in this general area over here, right in front of the church along the street. And on this slide, you can see the parcel over here, and it's shown on the red dashed lines. And as part of the design plan, the parcel includes some emergency access for the plaza. And Bea can talk more about how this parcel in particular fits into the renovations of Copley Square. But this is being done in part of the larger renovation to the park. And so when we are done with the park improvement project, then we'll also be able to say that the entire park is protected by the Parks Department. And there'll be new brick pavers on this parcel to match pavers that are remaining. And so the transfer of the parcels has gone through all of the agreements that it needs to from Public Works. And so the final step is for the Parks Commission to vote to accept the parcels. And they're already being maintained by the Parks Department as part of general maintenance for Copley Square. So this will just be correcting an oversight and formalizing something that is already informally part of our care. And B can add any other details she thinks I missed, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward and yeah, really just correcting an oversight.
You pretty much covered it, Kate. Thank you.
Yep.
If anyone has any specific questions about the design or the steps of this process that we went through to discover this, I'm happy to answer, but I helped Kate with the presentation initially, pulling things together, so we've covered the basics.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, B. Are there any questions from associate commissioners?
Thanks, Kathy. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Pete. Just confirming, this is a housekeeping matter. The entire area is owned by the city of Boston. The majority was in the care, custody, management, control of the Parks Department, but that smaller portion stayed with Public Works. They're happy to send it. We're happy to receive, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And it will be the entire park now will be Article 97 protected, which is really the biggest difference. I think Parks was already maintaining it, caring for it. So that will be the biggest change, is that it will be, formally protected.
Very, very good. I really appreciate staff's diligence here in making sure that the permanent protection applies to all Parks Department portfolio properties. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? Okay. Open up to any questions from the public. If you can raise your hand to indicate you would like to make a comment. Not seeing any. Carrie, would you read the vote for the record as well? I didn't read the vote in the entirety at the intro.
Sure. This is the Parks and Recreation Commission on behalf of the City of Boston for the purposes of providing a park in accordance with Article 97 of the amendments to the Constitution of the Commonwealth, hereby authorizes the acceptance of the property located within Copley Square Park at the intersection of St. James Street, Dartmouth Street, and Boylston Street in the Back Bay neighborhood, comprising of a portion of assessor's parcel number 0401089999 and consisting of approximately 2,402 square feet, identified as parcel F on the plan described as L-9881, City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Land Transfer Plan, Copley Square, Boston proper, February 26, 1968. The care, custody, management, and control thereof is hereby transferred to the Boston Parks and Recreation Department.
So can I have a motion? I'd like to entertain a vote on this matter. Would anybody like to make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Anyone like to second it?
Seconded.
Thank you. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any noes, please say nay. And any abstention, please state your abstention. Right, so the vote is passed. Thank you very much. All right, so we will move on to the next item, which is the design review for a building on Juan Joslin Place. Carrie, can you please read the vote?
First, let's make sure.
Yes, sorry, yes. Make sure we have all of the.
Okay. So
proponents.
Michael, you also have the list of the people that need to be made panelists. Are you able to help
I am.
move them to panelists? Great, thanks so much.
And I think, Michael, doesn't look like I'm able to promote people. So I think that's something that if you can start working on. And this is one project that has the next three items are relating to, the next three items on the agenda are relating to. And while we get, while we try to get the panelists in being able to present. So we're going to be looking at the approval of the design review for a building, the associated, and then the associated a vote for an Article 97 disposition, and then subsequent acquisition. That the Article 97 vote. So it's a one vote with a couple of different parts of that, and then a vote to authorize the Parks Department to enter into an MOU, all relating to this one project with many different parts. So I acknowledge this is a very complicated project. I appreciate the commissioners diving into and with very little background and not a lot of time to fully dive in, but we will do our best to try to explain all of the pieces in the next couple of minutes. Seth, I think you maybe. Is Seth the one that's going to be driving the presentation? Yeah. Okay, so looks like Seth, if we can promote Seth to be able to present as well.
Okay, it looks like I now have the ability to present. Thank you. I think we might, before I start presenting, I think I'd like to introduce Cairo Shen, Chief of Planning, who will be kicking us off today.
Should we have Carrie read the vote or wait until the end for that? Carrie, do you have a preference as to when that happens?
First, I would like to confirm that we have everyone we need that would like to be a panelist for this. It's difficult because there are so many people in the waiting room or in attendance here. So let's see, we've got Nupur. If there's anyone else that would like to be a panelist, if you could please raise your hand.
I think Diana may need to be promoted. Yeah.
Okay, let's see if we can do that.
I think
There may be some people on the project team too, so I will let them raise their hands and you can identify them that way.
I don't know how to check her. Jill, can we do an audio check on you, please? Can you unmute?
Nope. Check your mic.
How do we get her to
Check
unmute?
your mic input.
Something and it didn't.
Okay, you were unmuted previously.
Nope.
Is your volume on your computer up? Because okay. You're welcome to come down to my office if you like. Okay, all right. All right, is there anyone else that John Radigan would like to speak? Okay. Mikkel, are you able to elevate Darren Baird and John Radigan?
Yep.
Carrie, also flagging that Mallory Toomey from the Parks Department legal team is on, and she would like to be promoted as well. Thank you.
Should be all set.
Okay, Michael, could you also promote Mallory Shea, please? I'm sorry,
she's here.
I've lost the ability to promote people, Michael. That's
No worries.
relying on you. Thank you.
Mallory's here.
All right. It's
So Carrie, do you want to read the first design
Sure.
review, or should we do that at the end?
Let's just do a summary and then we can read it at the end before the vote.
Okay.
So this is to vote to approve a proposed building at 1 Jocelyn Place known as the Future Cancer Hospital, which is within 100 feet of Jocelyn Park in the Longwood Medical and Academic area, as well as the associated pedestrian connectors over Brookline Avenue and Pilgrim Road, the modifications to the facades of the building situated at 440 Brookline Avenue and the building situated at 334 Riverway, and improvements to Jocelyn Park and Jocelyn Place, all as approved by the Boston Planning and Development Agency Board on July 12, 2025.
So this is Kairos Shen, members of the Parks Commission. I'm the Chief of Planning, and we're here before you today to request your support and approval of the new cancer hospital and our Article 97 petition to the state for the reconfiguration and change in use of portions of Jocelyn Park. Before the staff presentation, I want to take a few moments here to highlight the critical importance of and public benefits of this request and approval. What you will see is truly a collaborative effort to reimagine and enlarge Jocelyn Park, involving the planning, parks, and transportation departments, as well as the Dana-Farber and Beth Israel team. The proposed redesign of Jocelyn Park evolved organically during the development review and approval process of the new cancer hospital. It has been a robust community process that included in-depth evaluations of the public realm surrounding the Beth Israel campus. The design was guided by some important principles and priorities. First, to activate and increase the use of the currently underutilized park into a vibrant and verdant open space that can simultaneously serve residents, workers, patients, and visitors to the Longwood Medical Academic Academic area. Second, to enhance pedestrian and vehicular safety by completely reconfiguring the circulation pattern and the roadway layout and cross sections that will prioritize pedestrian, bicyclists, buses, and emergency vehicles. Third, to integrate the park with the larger public realm, the new cancer hospital, and the Dana-Farber and Beth Israel campuses. And fourth and final one, to actually request the temporary change in the use of the park during the period of construction that will not only support the construction of the hospital and the park, but also maintain some continuous parks functions while accommodating uninterrupted emergency room access and ambulance circulation. I believe the plan that you will see before you achieve the best possible balance between the many competing access, safety, and spatial constraints while delivering a much enhanced park as well as a much needed new hospital for the city. I urge you to support this plan and will now turn it over to the team and my colleague, Napur, to provide the details. Thank you.
Thank you, Kairos. Good morning, Kathy, Carrie, Parks colleagues, and commissioners. It's great to see so many of you again. My name is Napur Monani. I am the Senior Deputy Director for Development Review within the Planning Department, and I've been working very closely with everyone that you'll hear from today over the last 2.5 years. to work on not only sort of shaping the hospital, but also really envisioning the park that we're excited to present. I'm joined by my colleagues in urban design, Diana Fernandez and Seth Reisman, and several members of the Dana-Farber and Beth Israel teams. In addition to myself, today you will hear from Wendy Gettleman, the VP of Facilities Management and Real Estate at Dana-Farber, Michael Hinchcliffe, a principal at Payette, who's the lead designer for the building, and Chris Donahue, principal at MVVA Landscape Architects, who has been leading the charge on reimagining Joslyn Park. There are several other members from the proponent team available for questions and discussion, and we are very pleased to be sharing this with you today for your consideration. As Kathy and Carrie mentioned at the beginning, we're here to request 3 votes related to One Joslyn Place and the Joslyn Park project. The first of these is an approval of the building, pedestrian connectors, and associated alterations of existing buildings that are within 100 feet of Joslyn Park. The second has 2 components: the authorization of the city to petition to the state for Article 97 actions to first reconfigure and enlarge the park and to allow temporary construction use during the period of building construction. And then finally, we are also seeking authorization for the Parks Commissioner to enter into an MOU with planning and the proponent, BIBMC, to coordinate design and construction of Joslyn Park. Let's go to the next slide. We will begin by explaining the components of the building, the connectors, and associated changes pursuant to that first vote. And I will now invite Wendy from Dana-Farber to give us an overview of the hospital project, sort of speak to the need for this particular program in this moment. And then Michael from Payette will present the project as well as the connectors. Wendy?
Good morning, and thank you, Nupur, Kairos, the Parks Department, and of course the commissioners. 2 years ago, Dana-Farber and Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center entered into a collaboration and announced plans for New England's first dedicated cancer hospital. The new 300-bed hospital is required as the regional bed capacity has not kept pace with rising cancer incidence, leading to longer ER wait for cancer patients. While outpatient cancer treatment has grown, unfortunately, there remains a need for inpatient beds to deliver highly innovative, complex treatments that are extending patients' lives. The future cancer hospital will contribute toward meeting this critical need. With that, I'd like to hand the presentation over to Michael Hinchcliffe from Payette. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Good morning, commissioners. Again, my name is Michael Hinchcliffe. I'm the principal architect in charge of the project. On the next slide, we'll see that the proposed project is the current location of the Joslyn Diabetes Institute. Several years ago, Joslyn Diabetes Institute became a part of the Beth Israel Lahey Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center system. Within the next few months, the existing clinical and research functions in that building will complete their relocation to other parts of the Beth Israel campus to make way for the future cancer hospital that Wendy described the need for. This location is unique and well suited between the 2 campuses to provide for critical care for the future cancer hospital. You'll note, though, in the image on the upper left, that the Joslyn Diabetes Institute is adjacent to Joslyn Park, a very important parcel in the city and to the district. I will say here that it is not apparent but the site does slope about 10 feet between Pilgrim Road on the left and Brookline Avenue on the right, creating a very dynamic and narrow space for this parcel. On the next slide, we see the image of the future cancer hospital. As was described earlier, the proposed project is the culmination of a very collaborative process over the last 18 to 24 months. The project will provide for 300 dedicated inpatient beds for cancer care in a 14-story building that will also include a 4-story underground valet parking garage for patients and visitors. Along Brookline Avenue, the project will also include 5,000 square feet of local retail, replacing in kind the retail that exists to serve the community today. This project also includes within it a full complement of services to support patient care. As many of you know, a hospital today is a complex entity with many support departments and requirements. One of those is key connections to both Beth Israel and Dana-Farber to support cancer care. On the next slide is a diagram of those proposed hospital connectors. Recently approved by the Public Improvement Commission, these connectors will link the future cancer hospital to critical patient services, both inpatient and outpatient, at the adjoining campuses. The first is the Pilgrim Road connector. It will span across Pilgrim Road and then create a pedestrian arcade along Pilgrim Road to link the cancer hospital to the emergency department, operating rooms, and other critical functions provided by Beth Israel. The second connector will span across Brookline Avenue, connecting to the Dana building and critical inpatient or critical outpatient functions for patients, such as a transfer from a doctor's appointment visit directly to the hospital, avoiding a complicated and stressful ambulance transfer. On the next page, you'll see that the result of that collaborative process with various agencies, abutters, neighborhood, and other representatives in the community resulted in connectors that are both dynamic to provide the required care, but also will enhance the public realm and mitigate their impacts on neighboring Joslyn Park. The images across the top show you the proposed Pilgrim connector, providing that covered pedestrian experience along Pilgrim Road, but also framing the new Joslyn Park. Below, you'll see images of the Brookline connector spanning across Brookline Avenue, connecting into the Dana building. Again, a part of our ask today is for approval not only of the cancer hospital, but also for the minor facade modifications required to receive these two connectors. On the next slide, you'll see that through the course of the development of the project, we were very careful to consider the future cancer hospital's impacts on the environment. One of those is the impacts on the Riverway and Joslyn Park from its shadows. The approved massing and project worked very carefully to minimize those shadows by sculpting and manipulating the form of the building such that no single area in Joslyn Park or in the Riverway will receive more than 1 hour of net new shadows on the spring equinox in March, in conformance with the Longwood Medical and Academic Area Guidelines. While the transit of these shadows across may be slightly longer, the project did work incredibly hard to mitigate its impacts on both the park and the Riverway. On the next slide, you'll see that this mitigation effort was the result of almost 18 months of engagement with the community, with the city, and with the proponents. One of those mitigation efforts that we'll hear about in a moment is the proposed redesign of Joslyn Park. But there are significant other mitigations that are taken into account from the building, whether those are transit or pedestrian safety improvements along the Riverway or Brookline Avenue, or extensive improvements to Brookline Avenue itself and Pilgrim Road. On the next slide, we'll see that those mitigation efforts not only improve and seek to augment the pedestrian realm immediately adjacent to the future cancer hospital, but took into consideration the building face to building face impacts around Joslyn Park for the new project to improve this very important corner of our city for the residents, visitors, and everyone that comes to Longwood throughout the course of the day. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions for any of these mitigation efforts in more detail or for the project itself. But at this point, I'd like Nupur to take over to tell you a little bit more about the required steps to make this project happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. As you heard from Michael and Chief Shen at the beginning, this opportunity, this sort of proposed mitigation and community benefit that was offered by the proponents through the planning department's Article 80 process was really the beginning, was the seed for what became really a building phase to building phase reimagining. And so I'd like to spend a few minutes sort of speaking to the second vote here, which is to seek authorization for the city and the planning department representing the city to petition the state for those two specific Article 97 actions. Let's go to the next slide. The existing park, as you can see here, while it provides much needed respite within the dense urban configuration of the LMA, it still remains much to be desired. It has a very challenging grade change. It remains difficult to access and navigate. Several difficult sort of crossings across Joslyn Place and Deaconess Road, which are busy pedestrian thoroughfares, sort of transporting patients and workers from the respective buildings. And then finally, because of poor soil quality and drainage and little tree canopy, it leaves sort of an unhealthy lawn, which is really not living up to its potential as a great place for rest and recharge, as it should be in this part of the city. On the next slide, you'll see exactly what we mean when we say sort of busy thoroughfares disconnecting the park. It serves, unfortunately, more as a traffic island because its geometry and configuration of abutting roads really limits safety and usability here. Both of these roadways have parking lanes as well as 24/7 demands on vehicular access. And the offset of the intersection of Brookline Ave, which you'll see on the plan in a minute, creates hazardous environments for pedestrians along this heavily trafficked bike corridor and pedestrian corridor. Next. So in thinking about sort of what more we could do with this community benefit that was offered to the city, we started to take a step back and look at ways to deconflict all of these different sort of vehicular movements that come together on Brookline Ave and Joslyn and Deaconess Road. We wanted to leverage the investment to improve entirely the public realm connection, as well as the edges of the private property itself. We've been working very closely with colleagues in parks, in transportation and public works, and expanded the scope to really answer some of these questions and think about what more we could do than deliver a new park itself. Next. Primarily, we wanted to resolve the unsignalized left turn on Brookline Ave into Joslyn Place. That remains an area where a lot of these different modes conflict, vehicles turning left and right off of Brookline Ave into that particular roadway, bikes going up and down, sort of pedestrians attempting to cross the street to access the hospital or the park in front of it. And then, finally making sure that while we were doing all that, we were still thinking about prioritizing ambulance access, which is a primary role that Brookline Ave serves today for the hospitals in this area. We wanted to consolidate traffic flow in and out of this area into one signalized intersection. So if you look at the diagram on the right there, what this does is eliminates the left turn off of Brookline Ave and consolidates all of that into the intersection on Brookline and Joslyn Place. That is a signalized intersection. It has very clear visibility, and it essentially makes sure that we are able to, as best we can, avoid some of those near fatalities that have taken place in the past at the intersection of Brookline and Joslyn above. What this resulted in was a reconfiguration of the park, and this is what sort of has led us to seek a change from the legislature in terms of its Article 97 status. The park ends up getting bifurcated as a result of it, but more importantly, it also expands. You'll see between those two diagrams that the part of Joslyn Park that sort of remains in its existing configuration is expanded towards the south of this page and south of the plan, really reclaiming some of that right-of-way back from Deaconess Road and eliminating a couple of lanes of parking. And then the part that is adjacent to the face of the New Cancer Hospital really, again, serves as sort of a much needed wider space and functions more as a park with an abutting sort of use as opposed to the island that it feels like today. This change results in a net increase of 1,300 square feet into the Article 97 protected area. The existing park is 13,300 square feet. The new park is 14,600. And in a minute, I'll talk about sort of the specific configuration of these changes and the different protections these different areas will be offered. But most importantly, I also wanted to mention, given that we were thinking about it from building phase to building phase, while the official sort of Article 97 replacement land will be 14,600 square feet, because of the thought and careful sort of consideration that has gone into developing the furnishing zones around both of these new open spaces, and the furnishing zones abutting the building itself, this area, when you're in it, will feel a lot more green than it does today. And we have some wonderful renderings that Chris will walk us through further down in the presentation, which help you imagine what this will feel like in the future. Next. So this gives you a little bit of an aerial view into sort of the expanded configuration of Joslyn Place, and I want to invite Chris to kind of speak more to the design intent and the specific design moves that were considered in getting us to this reimagined park.
Sure. Thank you, Nupur, and thank you, commissioners, for your time. Chris Donahue, principal at MVVA. We are the landscape architects on the project. And I just want to say it's exciting and an honor to support the health and wellness of the city of Boston in such a dramatic way with this project, both in the work that we're doing to support Dana-Farber and BI's work in healthcare for the city, but also in promoting the health and wellness of the city's residents through expanded public green space. The impact that green space plays in the health and wellness of the city's residents is just immeasurable. Access to nature, access to tree canopy, to places of respite are incredibly important. And so to think about this project in a building face to building face, expanded public realm where we get more activity, more life, more accessibility, and more inclusion in a public space is pretty fantastic. So if you'll go to the next slide where we look at the specific moves that were born out of a public process, both in the Article 80 process for approvals of the building, but also then through the Parks Department process of defining what the park will be. This plan suggests a series of garden rooms that navigate nearly or over 10 feet of grade change, as Michael and Nupur both alluded to in their previous comments. You'll see on the left side of the plan, up near Pilgrim Road, up near elevation 49, down at Brookline Avenue. We're down near elevation 38 on the opposite end of the park. Rather than a single path, which the current park configuration provides, this suggests a network of meanders through a very verdant landscape, one that off of those meanders offers garden rooms, places for people to gather, places for events to take place within a new tree canopy, a canopy that's expanded to provide more carbon sequestration than the current park provides, more places for shade and respite, more places for accessible seating, seating that you can get to accessibly and comfortably with all sorts of mobility and or visual impairments. I think it's also important, Nupur commented on, the right of way and the furnishing zones and how they feel quite park-like. Beyond the expanded footprint of the park proper, we think that this truly will feel like the park expands not just from that single rectangle, but all the way up to the building face for the new cancer hospital, across the street toward Rosenberg, and through this reconfiguration of the park provides a really fantastic network of inclusive, accessible spaces under the canopy of new public trees. If you go to the next slide, we'll look at how this sort of spatially feels and looks here in the city. This is a cross section from the left side of the plan, Pilgrim Road on the left, Brookline Ave all the way down on the right. You can see there's a dashed line for the existing tunnel underneath the site. So all of this takes place over an existing structure. One of the things I wanted to call attention to with this section, where you see Jocelyn Place right in the middle there, is how the Jocelyn Place, that section of road now cut through the park, feels not like bifurcation of a park, but in fact more like the park is enveloping a public roadway. It's creating a very safe, slow, navigable pathways for people getting to the new cancer hospital, people getting to the emergency room. That new bend in the road encourages much slower traffic and offers a much more park-like experience for pedestrians and vehicular traffic alike. If you look closely into each of these sort of garden experiences that we're creating in the next slide, you'll see on the left here a garden room framed by flowering trees, suggesting, magnolias or redbuds or something else that does well in the shade of the new canopy trees that we'd be planting overhead. Central to this part of the section, you'll see that existing tree. That's an existing sugar maple, 9.5-inch DBH. It's the largest canopy tree that was deemed feasible to save within the existing park. And so we are working the new pathways and garden rooms around that existing tree so that it can remain part of the future park as well. You'll see lots of places to sit and places to gather within these garden rooms, and that circle in the sort of center right of the image suggests pathways that are framed by new trees, places to sit along the path's edge. You'll see stone outcroppings and also typical more furnishing like park benches for people to gather along the path. If you go to the next section, just to hit on one more aspect of the park's what the park might offer. The suggestion of an elevated garden room adjacent to Brookline Ave. It's a place to gather, a place that may host events, something that the existing park does a little bit of. We're hoping to amplify that quality or that aspect of what the park might provide. We see this as a fantastic place for networking events, after work gatherings, or something within a medical community that could help to amplify the park's presence within not just the LMA, but within the city at large, to become, a new destination park within an already fantastic network of Boston parks.
Thank you, Chris. Let's go to the next slide. So this really is not as compelling as the images Chris was just talking through, but it's very important. So bear with me as I try to explain all of the complexities of what we're seeking to achieve with the Article 97 action. To simplify it, anything that is green or green with a blue hatch over it will be what is protected under Article 97 status in the future. Anything that is that pinkish purplish hue sort of in the middle is existing park that will be converted to new right-of-way. And then the patch that is sort of at the very north of this plan abutting the building itself, that's in yellow, will be existing right-of-way, the rights of which will be turned over to the proponent. So what we end up with as a result of these sort of complex transfers of land is a net new park of about 1,300 square feet, taking the area from the existing park at 13,300 to the area of the new park at 14,600. All of the areas in green will be protected by Article 97 in the future, and we will also, pursuant to the requirements of the legislature, be conducting a detailed appraisal to show and demonstrate that the value of the net new park is greater than the value of what exists there today. Next. I want to now speak to the sort of second component of the Article 97 actions, which is a request to use this park for staging during the construction of the building. Next. So this park is probably one of the most sort of complex places in the city of Boston, with many different historical conveyances, complex subsurface rights, creating utility infrastructure below it, and obviously sort of hospital uses, which have their own demands of what happens in front of their building frontages. We have been working very closely with Parks, Transportation, Public Works, all of the different jurisdictions that this work will touch over the last several months to come up with a construction plan that is able to be a win-win solution and make sure that we are balancing each of our different entities' interests in developing this. BIDMC owns the 1960s utility tunnel that carries steam and chilled water that runs underneath the park, which you also saw in section a minute ago from Chris. The tunnel requires realignment to meet current standards and allow the regrading and to deliver the proposed park to ensure that we are grading it in the right way to essentially deliver the tree canopy we're looking for, as well as sort of a healthy lawn. Coordination is going to be immensely critical to preserve both hospital operations, and this is one of the components of the MOU that was referenced at the beginning of the presentation, which I will go into later. Next. The utility construction really enlarges the scope of this project and makes it a lot more complex than a typical park reconstruction. It also makes it a more time-consuming one, but we do think, given all of the benefits we've outlined and the goals that this project will deliver on, this is one that is worthwhile to pursue. Next. The construction of the hospital and the park is expected to take place over 3 years, lasting 3 phases, lasting approximately 4.5 years. The 3 phases are enabling work and demolition, which will happen over year 1, the construction of the hospital building, which will happen over the next 2.5 years, and then finally the construction of the park and the adjacent realigned rights of way, which will be that final year of construction. The city had initially asked the proponent to deliver a construction management plan and strategy that preserved the park at all times during the construction of the building. However, as you can see here, doing that would mean that we are allowing trucks and construction sort of vehicles to circulate around Brookline, around the hospital building on Brookline and on Pilgrim, which were deemed by our BTD colleagues as being hazardous to public safety. That immediately sort of took this option off the table, and we began to consider what else we might do and how else we might sort of thread this very fine needle that we have to in order to deliver these improvements here. Joslin Park also needs to be reconstructed for the utilities themselves, right, to sort of access the utilities that were just referenced below. And so we began to think about sort of, could we create an area, we create a plan that allows for some portion of the park to be used for staging for a temporary period, but also preserve sort of a portion of it that is highlighted in green, which centers the mature sugar maple tree that Chris was mentioning a minute ago, and really protects it from construction activity in the future. Doing this also allows us to ensure that a small portion of park sort of remains open throughout the construction of the building itself and is able to provide a space for recharge for both workers, patients, sort of visitors to the LMA. So what this diagram here and the next series of diagrams sort of shows you is how we worked with our colleagues internal to the building and with the proponent team here to ensure that at least 3,750 square feet of park, which is indicated in that sort of green rectangle to the top left of the plan, remain open throughout construction. The sugar maple that Chris was talking about is sort of the pink dot in the middle of that tree. We're working with all teams to ensure that construction activity is planned and undertaken in such a way as to not disturb the sort of root structure of that tree and ensure that it remains thriving even post-construction. The trees that are dotted in yellow, sort of at the corner of that space, are trees from the existing park that have been identified to be relocated within the new temporary park. And again, even for those trees, we'll ensure that we're working out the details sufficiently and creating soil protection and tree boxes that are needed to preserve any vegetation here, which will be completed in the final phase. Most importantly, and if we keep flipping through the next series of slides here, we want to ensure that, no portion of the building comes online before the park itself, right? So this is sort of going through stage one again, click through the next one. This begins to show you that, as we get closer to the phases of completion of the building itself, the park is brought online alongside it. We go one more. The center portion of the park, which will sort of remain that island, the sort of enlarged island, will be delivered slightly earlier. And then finally, the piece that is anchored to the new cancer hospital will be delivered at the very end. A condition of sort of this project is that the building cannot seek its certificate of occupancy until the park is complete, right? And so it's been very important for the planning department and all of the other city agencies working on this to make sure that we have a fully functional, thriving, sort of completed park before the cancer hospital becomes operational. Next. I will now sort of speak to the third component of the votes we're seeking from you today, which is to authorize the Parks Commissioner to enter into an MOU with the couple of parties involved to continue coordinating the design and construction of this very complicated project. Next. There are a few different components to the MOU. The intent really is to allow us to spell out sort of the rules of collaboration to ensure that not only during construction, but even after it and through the maintenance of this park, we have a clear identification of the roles and responsibilities and the standards that the Parks Department holds these public spaces to. The parties referenced in the MOU are the City of Boston Parks Department, the Planning Department, and BIDMC, the project component. The MOU commences upon the execution of that particular document and expires when the reconstruction of the park is complete. It specifies that construction drawings for the reconfigured park should be materially consistent with what is being presented here today, and that the Article 97 process is to be concluded by January 31, 2026, which is a very important milestone for us to achieve to ensure that we're able to meet these construction deadlines and ensure that the hospital is functional when Dana-Farber begins their partnership with BIDMC so that there is no break in patient care 5 years out from now. The signage, any signage that will be placed in the new park would be approved by the planning department. There is an existing BIDMC emergency room sign at the edge of the park, which sometimes sort of makes it feel more like a private space, right, than a City of Boston public park. And so we're trying to think carefully about sort of where to relocate that, and we'll be working with PIC to identify the right location within the right of way. There are a few existing vent structures, around this emergency room sign that I mentioned a minute ago. And so we're also working carefully with colleagues in parks, and we'll be negotiating through this MOU, sort of the design and landscaping details to ensure that these feel like very much embedded in the open space, right, and are not disruptive to the activities that we envision taking place here. Next. The change in use and the replacement land, as I mentioned, the details of these actions will be consistent with the change of use plan that we looked at. Sort of that was the diagram with the green, purple, and yellow swatches on it. We also will ensure that any of those sort of moves are subject to sort of PIC approval, right? And so the MOU will spell out the different dependencies that are involved in making sure that the change of use plan can be executed. Any conveyance to the Parks Department of the new sort of Article 97 replacement land will be at least 12 inches below the finished grade. And we're continuing to sort of talk about additional rights that the city might need to ensure that we're able to protect trees in the future and any sort of subsurface root structures that would be needed to continue for this park to thrive. I will mention a specific aspect of this, which is there is a shared use path that kind of cuts through the part of the park that is abutting the building. That shared use path serves as the sort of ADA compliant access to both the park as well as the hospital. And so we're continuing to talk about with the proponent team, the right to access that particular pathway, which will be transferred over to the city through whatever legally enforceable means or determined through the discussions around this MOU. I want to talk about the Article 97 process for a minute. This is our first and sort of very important milestone in ensuring that we can submit this request to the state. We have consulted and provided notice to the Executive Secretary's office at EEA. They are eager to work with us and sort of ensure that we're doing right by the legislation and by their own policies before submitting this to the legislature itself. We are hoping to achieve a unanimous vote of approval by the Parks Commission today. This is a requirement of the state to ensure that we can take that next step. Following this vote, we will be seeking to achieve a 2/3 majority consent of City Council in the City of Boston. We will work closely with the staff at EEA to provide alternatives analysis and the appraisal, determining that the value of the replacement land is greater than the existing park. We will file the legislation with the state and finally seek to get a 2/3 majority approval by the legislature before that July 2026 date. Next. The MOU will also sort of spell out further details and construction management strategies and precautions and guardrails for the 3 phases of construction. We'll continue to work closely with the proponent team to identify and name those trees that will be preserved and retained. And then finally, we will lock in through this MOU the area of at least 3,750 square feet, which will remain open during the period of building construction. The CMP that was shared with you, the construction management plan, will also be developed in a manner that is consistent with those presented today. Next. I talked about the ownership of the accessible paths. Again, this will be something that is transferred over to the city through Article 97, but we will work to provide the proponent access through a long-term license or other legally enforceable means, which we'll continue talking about in the MOU. The existing park, sometimes people like to sort of refer to it as a smoker's alley. We want to ensure that we are correcting for that in the design and enforcement and maintenance of the future park. And so there will be no receptacles for cigarette disposal in the new Joslin Park, and both Parks Department and the proponent team will work in conjunction to enforce the no smoking policy. Finally, the building design, as it develops through DDs and CDs, will also be consistent with what's being shown here today. and will be subject to detailed review by the planning department and park staff. And then the utilities plan, which is very, very complex. And, we are still continuing to sort of understand all of the different ins and outs of the subsurface condition, will continue to be developed to facilitate both the reconfiguration and reconstruction of the park, as well as the operation of this important hospital building. Next. So we'll end there. We threw a lot at you. Really appreciate everyone's patience and attention going through these materials with us. We are happy to take any questions or comments that the commissioners might have. Chris, myself, Wendy are all available, as are other members of the design, engineering, legal teams. And Michael, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned you too. But there's a huge cast of characters available. We are well equipped to answer any questions you may have. So looking forward to engaging in that discussion. I'll turn it over to Kathy.
Thank you, Nupur, and thank you so much for putting this all together and explaining it, I think, very clearly, the work that we're trying to accomplish with these votes. I think maybe if we can go through, I think maybe the plan is maybe answer questions, and then have other departments weigh in. I think there's some other departments that would like to weigh in, and then go through community questions and then resolve those and try to then come to a vote. I think that's maybe the plan of action. Does that sound reasonable, Carrie?
It does, and I would just say at this moment that Jill Zick and I, in her role as interim chief landscape architect, we provided a 4-page memo to the parks commissioners that summarized basically the presentation you've seen today. I don't think there's anything that we need to add at this point. Jill, do you think?
No.
But if the commissioners have any questions for us on that memo, we're happy to answer them. In the interest of time, I would not go through it all again.
So open it up for commissioner questions. How can we?
Thanks, Kathy. I'll jump in. First, I just want to provide a commendation to both the city team as well as the proponents team. That was a very thorough presentation today, so really appreciated that. I have several questions, but I think they were all answered during the presentation, but I do just want to make sure I have points of clarity on those, and I'll be mixing in some comments as well. So first, the building is very striking, so I just wanted to send my appreciation for such a thoughtful and a bit of a landmark design of a building that's immediately next door to this park. I think that was very beautiful. The park I'm noticing is growing 10%, so I appreciate that. Bit of a question, bit of a point of clarity. The needed reconfiguration of the park, as well as the temporary use of this park as the construction laydown for this building, that seems to be a request driven by the city itself, not so much by the proponent. It seems that in coordination and collaboration with transportation, public works, parks, that the planning department has really negotiated this as a way to satisfy the city's priorities, and that it should be viewed as such, not a way to make life easier for Beth Israel and the proponents building that. Nupur, I see you nodding your head. I just want to acknowledge that you're in agreement with that statement.
Yes, that's exactly right. It was very important to us that we leverage this opportunity to realign and rationalize the transportation network, which is extremely dangerous today.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Chris, I noticed that, what we currently have today is very rectilinear. It really encourages flow through the park. It does not encourage folks to stop and rest and enjoy the space. And the design that we're seeing today, as a contrary, seems very organic, and it seems to encourage folks to gather in various spaces, to use that in many different ways. And I'm sure that the inner workings of the hospital can spill out into this space to the extent appropriate. So I just wanted to commend you on that design and the design of the team. It seems like a much improvement for the space. I wanted to talk just a little bit about the utility tunnel. If I hear correctly, the 1960s tunnel is essentially being reconstructed. Do I understand that correctly?
That's correct. It is being reconstructed, and sort of the grading of it is changing. I will let members of the project team speak to the technical details here. Michael, do you want
Okay.
to jump in?
Yeah,
So my
I'm
angle on
happy.
that before you start, Michael, is I wanted to make sure that whatever subsurface structures that are going to remain in place after we get this new beautiful park are going to last, an equal lifetime of the park itself. We don't want to see, maybe cutting some corners or leaving some structures in place underground that in 10 years' time are going to require new excavations of this space. So I'll let you talk a little bit more broadly in general about the subsurface utilities. But if you could really focus for my interests, what's being reconstructed, how long that's expected to live, and if any elements are going to remain not reconstructed, not refurbished, what we think the life expectancy of those elements are.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think Joe O'Farrell from Dana-Farber, did you want to make a coordinated comment first?
I'm happy to answer the question also. It's not so much reconstructing the tunnel as that we need to remove the top section of the tunnel, which is a pipe chase for the steam to the Beth Israel campus. We need to remove that in order to get the new Joslin Place road configuration in place. It cuts into the top of that pipe chase. And then also to ensure that we can achieve all of the accessible pathways through the balance of the park, we need to remove it. We will, of course, use the opportunity to ensure that the tunnel, to your point, does not need any further work. It has not since it was put in the 60s, to my knowledge, other than actual, connections into the tunnel, as pipes unfortunately do occasionally, rot out, below grade buried pipes that tie into the tunnel. But there's only one such instance of that we're familiar with.
So Joe, the top of the tunnel's coming down, but then are you leaving the sidewalls in place?
Yeah, yes, there's a pipe chase, like a 2-foot section, was built on top of the tunnel to get this steam line out of the public way. And that is what needs to be relocated. The tunnel itself, will be fully waterproofed, strengthened to ensure that the vehicular traffic passing over it that had not previously been passing over it can be handled. And then, close back up to, for all intents, never to be opened again,
Okay. Well, I think it's in our mutual best interest to make sure that all remaining structural elements of that tunnel are looked at today. And if we have any, elements that have a shorter lifespan, that we take a close look at that to make sure that we don't have to open this puppy back up in the future.
No, 100%, yeah.
Okay,
agreed.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. I love the fact that we're doing tree relocation. Far too often, folks just want to cut down the tree and replant smaller diameter. So kudos to whomever's idea that was, and appreciation to the team for continuing to execute the relocation of the tree as opposed to just replacement. I also very much appreciate that no certificate of occupancy is going to be issued for the building until the park is completely done. Carrie, can I get your confirmation that that's either in the vote or that you're going to work with ISD to make sure that that's actually implemented when the time comes in the next few years?
It is not currently in the vote, and it is not in the MOU either. So it does not, your statement you just made does not exist in the current project.
I
right
can
now.
jump in and clarify that from the planning department's perspective too. The project and the park were approved together through our Article 80 process, right? Both at the IMP level for their zoning and for Article 80B large project review. Seth and his team will be working closely with the proponents to sort of review construction drawings. It is the issuance of a letter from Seth to ISD, sort of via the proponent, that allows them to go and seek a building permit, right? Our legal team, and Mallory's here, who can also confirm this, sort of issues a certificate of consistency and completeness for the project, including its sort of public benefit obligations, before they can go and sort of seek their CO with ISD. So the planning department is sort of the last stop before they go and seek the CO. And we have the ability and sort of the legal mechanisms to enforce that the community benefit and obligation is delivered before they can do that with ISD. And Mal, I'll stop here and see if you have anything else to add.
No, Nupur, you said it all correctly. We wouldn't issue a certificate of completion, I think, just to put a final point on it, until the project is fully complete and the park is a component of the project as mitigation.
And it would be the planning department certificate of completion that would be necessary in order for the proponent to actually pull certificate of occupancy?
Exactly, to get their full certificate of occupancy for the building. That's right.
So I don't want to complicate matters with a proviso, but Carrie, can I ask that you follow up with the appropriate folks to make sure that you understand this and to make sure that all of these, you know, reminders and agreements are in place so that fast forward 5 years, when the building is done, we make sure that the park is also done before we start to utilize the building? Does that seem reasonable?
So you're not asking for that to be a proviso, you're asking that to be a practice?
I'm going to defer to the rest of the commissioners in their conversations. I'm taking up quite a bit of time right now for them to express their opinion. And Kathy, I would certainly look to you for your opinion. I think since we have a fellow city department in place with that authority, then I personally am comfortable relying on that, but I'd like to make sure that Parks Department staff is fully aware and in agreement. Does that make sense, Kathy?
Yes, it makes sense to me. And I think we have a couple of different mechanisms that we could memorialize that just for everyone's clarity. It could be added in the term sheet of the MOU that we will be developing. And I think there's probably a couple other avenues that we could make sure that is memorialized as well, in addition to the Article 80 vote.
Perfect. I have 2 more points. I don't mean to monopolize the time. Ongoing maintenance for this park space, that is still going to be the responsibility of Beth Israel. Is that correct? And what's the durability of that length in time? Is it in perpetuity? Do we know?
The current MOU has a time frame. There's an MOU in place right now with Beth Israel for the maintenance of the park. It has was negotiated when they had their building at 111 Francis Street approved in 2020 maybe. And it was replacing an MOU that was in place for decades based on the fact that they had taken the land underneath the park for a below surface cancer research center that did not get constructed. So there's a long history of Beth Israel taking maintenance responsibility for that park. That will continue. It's listed in the term sheet for the MOU because we have not yet talked about the exact terms of what that continuing MOU will be, including the term for the time.
Okay. But so is the expectation though that it will continue in perpetuity so long as Beth Israel has this operation right next door to the park?
I think from the Parks Department perspective, that's what we would ask for. I can tell you that has not been negotiated with the proponent yet.
Okay. Anyone on the proponent side interested in chiming in and giving us a little bit of confidence and assurances that is the case?
Ron, do you want to jump in and take this one for us?
I think Newport just called on me. I'm
Yes.
John Radigan, counsel for BIDMC, and yes, that's the intent. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. My last question is for Jill. Jill, when this measure came before us a couple of months ago as a preview matter, we discussed ensuring that bifurcating this park space was not going to, inhibit the enjoyment of the park as a whole. I just wanted to hear your personal thoughts and looking at the current plans and renderings that we're seeing. Are you feeling comfortable that this park space is going to be usable in their separate portions as well as a whole, and that it won't be too negatively impacted by that roadway going through it?
No, I'm actually, I have a high level of comfort with the configuration of the park as proposed, primarily because it will be a much safer park to access and enjoy, and a more accessible park from a programming perspective. So I think, this is a great opportunity for us to capitalize upon to get a better working park that is more accessible and usable by more people.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's all for me, Kathy.
Thank you, William. Any other commissioners have any questions?
I had a couple of questions. It seems like a lot of what's happening with this new park is driven mostly by traffic and cars, but I'm concerned about the pedestrian experience. So with this bifurcated park, we've got a new crossing being put in. How will pedestrians, is it a pedestrian activated light there? How will traffic be slowed down? I can imagine ambulances kind of whipping through, and that might be a conflict. So how are we going to slow down traffic in this new bifurcated park?
Thanks for that question, Commissioner Seth. I wonder if you might be able to bring up the rendering, the plan rendering of the park and speak to some of these issues.
Sure. So we spent a lot of time looking at the pedestrian desire lines, both for folks who are using the hospitals coming to and from the front doors, as well as folks along Brookline Ave and all the major roadways, and trying to find the right moments of crossing that would ensure safety for pedestrians, as well as minimize what happens today, which are folks just sort of crossing the roadways at any point. Part of that is driven by the fact that there are perimeter sidewalks around the park today, which sort of encourage people to cross and find a spot to go to on the opposite side of the road anywhere. You've seen that along Jocelyn Place and Deaconess Road. We've now planted that very heavily to discourage sort of jaywalking, as well as sort of informal drop-offs in the wrong locations, which is a large cause of the congestion that we have today. So by channeling that and really locating the pickup drop-offs along Jocelyn Place and the Rosenberg, or Deaconess on the Rosenberg side of the building, we're going to be increasing safety there and channeling folks into the crosswalks that you see. There will be a light at the intersection at Brookline Avenue, and that's mainly about getting folks from both sides of Brookline Avenue safely across, and those folks traveling up, down on Page across Brookline Avenue. We're not currently seeing the need for a sort of light at the other two sort of mid-block crossings, but they come at sort of key moments that ensure there's sort of high visibility to cars that are approaching. On the diagonal that's located where there's a significant sort of slope up. So as cars are sort of turning into that diagonal, they're already slowing down. And then very much focused on the sort of visibility of that at the end of the sort of ramp and the straightaway. And that's why that crosswalk isn't located around the bend to the left, because that would minimize visibility, and it's not located further to the right, because that would be a little bit too quick for folks to see, drivers to see folks in the crosswalk. And similarly at the bottom of the page where the park connects to the Rosenberg building across Deaconess, that's done at the sort of end of the pickup and drop-off zone. That's very slow traffic, giving folks a sort of safe and protected zone to cross.
Okay. And not to complicate things, any provisions or thought given to cyclists coming up through this area? I used to cycle downtown a lot, and I know this is really hairy for cyclists. The whole area is hairy for cyclists. I almost got hit at least once on Brookline Avenue, not adjacent to this intersection, but close to it. And so what are the thoughts on cyclist provisions coming through this area?
Absolutely. That's been at the forefront of our thinking since all the way back at the IMP stage. And part of this project, or this project, is paying for part of the reconstruction of Brookline Ave and the integration of bike lanes on Brookline Ave in this section of the city. We're also coordinating, of course, with BTD on the design of that, as well as MBTA. There's a bus station near here that's also being relocated. And so we're trying to address that through new protected bike lanes on Brookline as the primary sort of bicycle route through this area.
But nothing coming through the proposed construction area.
We didn't, in looking at the traffic volumes, we didn't feel that dedicated separate bike lanes would be necessary, but that with the proposed realignment, we're slowing down the vehicles. We're also limiting the sort of lanes that they can travel in. So we feel like the sort of ability of bicycles to use on-road in these lower volume areas is acceptable.
So would you consider having sharrows on that new road? opposed
That's
to a
something I
separate
don't think
pipeline?
we've talked in depth with BTD about, but certainly can have that conversation and explore the right way to create safe bicycle environment here.
Other questions, I really love the notion of having these wooded rooms, so to speak. I think that's great, and based on previous conversations with city staff, my understanding is that there will be some green infrastructure in this new open area or new parkland, which is great. One question I had was shadow impacts. Is the only shadow impact in March of every year? I know the building kind of screens things from the north, so I wouldn't expect too much, but is it only that one time during the year with a shadow impact on parkland?
So there is roughly the equivalent amount of shadow, in spring as in fall. And then there are some shadow impacts in winter and summer. The standard that we do use in this area, we often use the sort of hinge seasons as an approximation, right, of the amount of shadow. And that's traditionally we use March 21st as the date to evaluate those impacts. So yes, there will be some impact during the winter and the hinge seasons, and I think very minimal impact on the summer. I don't know if the proponent can speak into any more depth.
That is correct, Seth. Your summary was accurate about the proposed cancer hospital's impacts on the parcel. The orientation with the building to the northeast of the site is actually quite beneficial in mitigating any additional late morning, any shadows after mid-morning.
Someone mentioned vent structures, which I don't remember hearing about. Do we have a picture or a drawing of where they are now and where they're going to be proposed to be? And what they're going to look like, for that matter?
I'll let Seth try to pull up an image of the existing, there you go. So the existing vent structures, if you are sort of driving or walking up Brookline Ave, there is a fairly large emergency room sign that's right at the edge of the park where it abuts Brookline Ave today. That is sort of covering the vent structures that exist today. We have some idea of sort of where they might be in the future, but this is one of those sort of details which we need to continue working on with both the Parks Department and the proponent team. We want to advance some of these concept drawings in conjunction with both teams so that whatever design solution is reached is one that we know can be integrated into the landscape design of the open space. But I'll let sort of Seth or Chris weigh in with more as needed.
I think the thinking for the new vent structures was it needs to meet a number of technical criteria, and we're not sort of at that moment yet where we fully understand all of that technical criteria. But key to this was really integrating it with the design of the park so that these don't stand out as sort of visible eyesores, and that Chris and his team have become very familiar with strategies on how to integrate these so that they are holistically part of the design of the park. You experience most of them are screened by plantings, so that they're not what you experience today is a big structure that has lots of signage on it, and it's this sort of element within the park itself. The approach to the design is going to be that so that they sort of fold into the design of the park rather than being things standing out amongst them by themselves.
Okay, well, I like that you said screening, and I think there should be some provision that's in the language of the vote that says at the right time that they will be screened with plantings or in some other way. Not to take up too much time, so a couple of other things. In terms of responsibility, I know that some of the language says design may be referred back to BPRD for further review and approval. And I think it should say will be referred back versus may be referred back. And I think that's in the first vote, the language in the first vote. And then do we know who the air rights tenant will be yet? Because I'm concerned that we have one, we want to make sure we have one entity that's responsible for everything. And I think some of the language says the proponent or the air rights tenant, and I think it should be one or the other, not both, if you know what I'm saying. So the language should really just reflect one entity that's responsible for everything. For example, the MOU states One Jocelyn Place and the air rights tenant, but other language before that states or the air rights tenant. So I just want to be consistent there.
Yeah, we can certainly look more closely at the term sheet and the MOU itself to ensure that we're not having conflicting provisions.
Okay. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Quealy. Great catch. Always great to have fresh eyes on many of these legal documents. So, Commissioner Bollinger, I'm not sure. You look like you unmuted yourself to ask some questions.
I did. Thank you, Kathy. So a number of questions and comments, and obviously, the park design that we're reacting to today is in its earliest stages. But it seems to be a very, very strong conceptual design. And I trust that there'll be many more iterations of this as it continues to become refined. That'll be going through Parks and Recreation review. So I just wanted to state that as something that I'm observing from the interaction here. I too think either retaining this small portion of the existing park, 3,700 plus or minus square feet, I think it's a worthy goal. It's not deal breaking for me, quite frankly. And I think that it's something that might want to be revisited as construction begins to get underway and plays out. And where I'm really coming from, I'm just wondering, in practicality, how comfortable this space will be when you're surrounded by construction. And I think that's something that can be monitored. If it's not being used, if it's an uncomfortable space because of the surrounding construction, I wouldn't be opposed to it being secured and just reopened when the park is completed. But I'm not saying that's contingent upon anything that I'll vote on today. It's just another observation. Like Assistant Commissioner Epperson, I applaud the salvaging of some trees that are on the property. The larger tree, it seems like that's staying in its current location. And I look for confirmation on that. And then the 5 other smaller caliber trees, are they being relocated into the existing park space that'll be retained and actually replanted, or are they going to be maintained above ground for some period of time and then relocated within the larger park?
The
Chris, do you wanna
intent
take
is,
that?
sure, thanks. The intent is to transplant them to their sort of final location within the future park, so that we're only moving them once and for a very brief period of time to ensure that they're as healthy as they possibly can be when going through transplant.
Okay, Chris, thank you. That provides me a little bit more comfort level there on their ultimate viability. A couple of other things relative to grade, and I think I understand this, and I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And there's an excellent diagram that identifies the elevations throughout the conceptual design of the park. Chris, maybe you can just more specifically define how one gets from one side of the park to Brookline Avenue in a way that's completely ADA compliant.
Sure. Thank you for that question. So there's a network of landscape rooms, right? Those are the ones that have those elevations on them. And then there's a path that sort of meanders through and between and connects those rooms. That meander is intentional. The goal there is to create as much horizontal run as possible within a small footprint so that we can make that a nice shallow slope, something that's under 5% so that it doesn't require a handrail, so that it doesn't feel like an accessible ramp to the degree possible that we can make that happen. The existing park does have pieces of that existing pathway that are just above 5% and therefore not fully accessible. I think there's, rationale for them being accessible if they follow the sort of natural grade of a site adjacent to the right of way. But our intent is to really capture the spirit of what ADA is supposed to be, which is to make those pathways navigable, accessible, inclusive, and comfortable to people with different mobility aids and abilities. So so that path, that meandering pathway that winds through the middle that Seth is highlighting now, that helps to navigate that intense changing grade over a very small site in a way that feels quite natural and just like part of a natural park path rather than a ramp necessarily.
Okay, that's great. And that represents an improvement over current conditions, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right, great. And then just building off of an angle of conversation that Assistant Commissioner Quealy brought up relative to shadow. And shadows become a topic of interest really across the city in regard to potential impacts on park and open space properties. And I just want to make sure that I have a clear understanding on this item. And I'm hearing that what has been designed is in compliance with the Longwood Medical Area Interim Design Guidelines. So I just want to confirm that that's an accurate statement. And related to that, the Parks Department memorandum, I think it's on page 2, makes reference to the implications from a shadow perspective on the park spaces, both the Riverway and Joslin Park itself. And also a reference that the $4.2 million park restoration is in fact mitigation for additional shadows that will be cast. And I'm not sure that's 100% accurate, but and if it is it also acknowledging that we're in alignment with the guidelines, but the mitigation is really for the additional shadow that is within the guidelines?
Commissioner, thank you for the question. This does get a little confusing sometimes, I know, with the guidelines. So I think as you all are aware, in 2003, the city released the LMA interim guidelines, which does specify that there should be no shadow longer than 1 hour on March 21st, created by new buildings. That is what this project was designed to meet, as evidenced by this graphic, that no one area of park will be in shadow for more than 60 minutes. There is also the sort of total transitory time from the moment a shadow first shows up on the park to the time that it heads out, and that's where the shadows are indeed a little bit over an hour. But the LMA interim guidelines refer specifically to a way of measuring the shadows from the city's municipal harbor plan, and that's about measuring the period of time shadow is on any one patch of land. So there is still shadow impact, even though it is consistent with the LMA guidelines. There are other impacts that this building has, and so that's part of the Article 80 conversation and process to come up with mitigation for those impacts. And so yes, both things are true, that the mitigation monies that are being devoted to the park and to other improvements are about the impacts of the building, including the shadows.
Okay, thank you. To Chris Donahue, Chris, when you were talking about some of the basic goals of a reimagined park related to the conceptual designs that have been established so far, you actually made reference to more light. So I guess all I would say is that I would encourage the design team, as the park continues to evolve into a final design state, that we look for design ploys that perhaps overcome the fact that there will be additional shadow cast on this park property as a result of the construction of the brilliant building across the street. So I would just encourage that to be part of a continuing dialogue as you work through some of the details and the arrangement of these spaces, and how to truly make them bright and welcoming spaces to the extent that that's possible. And then one final question relative to, and it seems to be just an amazing project, really, from a park and open space perspective, transportation, health and welfare. and yielding some $20+ million of improvements to assets that include the park and the roadway network surrounding and utility systems and so on and so forth. There's been reference that the park itself has a price tag of $4.2 million. Is that just the park itself, or is it infrastructure below the park? Is it the roadway improvements adjacent to the park? Could somebody please enlighten me on that part?
Thanks, Commissioner. I'll let Joe or some of the proponent
Sure.
speak to that question.
Yeah, so that is our goal. You know, this project has evolved, and you know, the removal of the top section of the tunnel, you know, was something that came up later in the discussion. But you know, we are committed to completing the park, so it's an area to be further explored, you know. But again, our commitment is to complete the park as shown on the graphics.
And that's
And that
how,
could
Commissioner Bollinger, that's
could
how the planning department documents have been written as well, right? As Mallory and I alluded to earlier. In order for them to seek their CO and for us to give them that ability, we will require the park to be complete, sort of whether it is exactly 4.2 million or a little bit more or a little bit less. I think what we're in it for is to get a completed and enhanced and improved park. And so the sort of price tag or dollar amount is an estimate that is meant to show the order of magnitude of this investment and not sort of limiting that investment itself.
Okay, Nupur and Joe, thank you. Those are my questions and comments. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Bollinger. Any other commissioners like to ask some questions? Okay. I think let's open it up for community questions. Or if there's any other, let me ask if there's any other city agencies that would like to comment, and then we'll go to community questions. I see somebody has a hand up in the. Okay. Anybody else from the city? Good on the city? Okay, great. So let's open it up for community questions. I see Tom Yardley has his hand up. Thank you. Tom?
Thank you, Kathy. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Tom Yardley. I am Vice President of Area Planning and Development for the Longwood Collective. We're a nonprofit representing 22 member institutions in the Longwood medical area, including the proponents of the hospital. Our mission is to drive collaborative solutions, enabling Longwood to be an innovative hub of healthcare research and education. And for 50 years, we've served as the stewards for Longwood, advancing area improvements, providing transportation services, operating a daycare, call center, running a fleet of shuttles, and a district-wide placemaking and beautification program that we started about 6 or 7 years ago in collaboration with the institutions. I'm here to voice our strong support for the proposed project. It not only enhances the existing park, but also expands parklands and improves circulation and traffic safety. And this is something we've studied very closely with our own traffic engineers in terms of the reconfiguration of the roads around the park. And hopefully this answers some of the questions that have been raised today. Just two key points about the redesign, and then secondly, the park access and circulation. On the redesign, I echo comments made. I think this creates a beautiful urban park that complements the world-class healthcare and state-of-the-art new hospital being built at 1 Joslin Place. It increases parklands by 1,300 square feet and adds park frontage on Brookline Avenue, which is a very busy thoroughfare, and I think is a wonderful front door opportunity to invite people into Joslin Park, which is kind of lost today with the current configuration. The quality of the landscape is also dramatically improved. I'm very familiar with that space. I go there literally daily. It replaces tired lawns and beds and a linear layout, which kind of blocks off the surrounding entrances with a series of garden rooms, meandering paths, and new plantings. In terms of park access and circulation, by consolidating 2 closely spaced and confusing intersections, traffic flows and safety will be improved. park visitors will be able to access the park more safely and comfortably from adjacent sidewalks, crosswalks, and building entrances, with roadway and sidewalk configurations better aligned with entrances and pedestrian desire lines. We hope the Boston Parks and Recreation Commission shares our excitement at the opportunity presented to create a new park. And we believe it'll provide a healing space for patients and a welcome oasis for visitors, workers, and local residents. I will say, just from our perspective, as regards some of the discussions on Brookline Avenue, some of those issues are TBD. We definitely agree there needs to be better bicycle accommodation. There's also a lot of curbside loading that happens, and my understanding is that that will be subject to further discussion and design, but we wholeheartedly agree there needs to be better safety and multimodal accommodations on Brookline Avenue. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Yardley. We also have Allison Pultenus has her hand up. We can allow her to make a comment.
Thank you, Kathy Baker Eclipse. My name's Allison Pultenus, and I've been following the project both as a Mission Hill resident and reporting for the Fenway News. I have one question and one comment. My question is about the utility tunnel and the district utility plant, I believe, is the Maytep plant at 474 Brookline Avenue. And knowing that in the future, there will be changes to that plant, because right now, of course, it's old style gas-fired cogeneration, and there's a strong interest in seeing modifications there. So it's a environmentally, adapting to climate change, et cetera. So if the new hospital and the existing BIDC, Beth Israel Deaconess buildings rely on that tunnel, I'm just wondering if changes to the plant will affect work on the tunnel and so on, or if the new hospital would be using a different energy source. So that's one question, because that relates to that comment about whether how long we could rely on the tunnel, not that there wouldn't be interventions with work on the tunnel after the park is complete. And my comment is about retaining a small part of the park for use by visitors during construction. And I believe Commissioner Bollinger was saying that that might not be desirable. And I tend to agree with him that not only protecting the trees is one thing, but protecting people from everything that will be going on there seems quite hazardous. So perhaps there could be some alternative mitigation considered instead of saving that part of the park. Maybe there's other green space that's close by that could be improved or made more accessible for hospital workers and visitors. Maybe the Riverway, I'm not sure, something on Pilgrim Road and the Riverway. So those are my points. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Joe, are you able to speak to the long-term
Sure.
utility plans for the region or the district as a whole?
Yeah, so to clarify, the Future Cancer Hospital does not tie into this tunnel at all. It's it's under the new stretch energy code. Boston's opt-in, component of that, so we're completely separate. With regard to the steam that is in the tunnel, that is even in the future, if the Maytep plant were to go to a low temperature hot energy system, there still would be steam required, because the steam that is in this tunnel also serves the central sterile processing department for BI's West Campus. So you cannot do without the steam. So any pathways for new low temp hot energy would not intersect with with this tunnel. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the general public? Doesn't look like it. So before we go to a vote, I just wanted to say a few words on behalf of myself about this project. Joslyn Park is a unique open space in the city of Boston. It's a remnant of a past city street grid, which the Parks Department is privileged to continue to steward into the future. There are challenges with the current configuration that need attention and resolution. Short distances between streets that congest vehicular circulation, especially with emergency vehicles, which was not a challenge envisioned years ago when the park was built. Curbside parking around the park edges limit safe and accessible entry points into the park and create safety hazards for both people and vehicles using the street. People often do not recognize that this park is a public park because it looks like an enlarged traffic island. And existing park benches do not have accessible routes to them, so not everyone is able to enjoy the space in the same way. We're so fortunate to have talented urban designers in our planning department who are encouraged to think beyond physical boundaries and departmental jurisdictions. They help us devise solutions that prioritize safety while creating a better urban environment as a whole. We're fortunate to have a partner like the New Cancer Hospital who can help us realize this better solution. The Parks Department has been collaborating with the planning department and the project proponent on this ambitious project because true collaboration is the only way it can be realized. As a landscape architect, I've learned that there are many ways to design a solution to a problem, but each one comes with trade-offs, and this is no different. We're balancing pluses and minuses in order to have a better public realm. Yes, we're proposing the disposition of parkland, something we do not undertake lightly, but we will be gaining more ground, literally, than we're losing. The disruption to park activities will yield a more vibrant and inclusive park with greater opportunities for programs and passive enjoyment. The new Joslyn Park will sit within an improved public realm from building face to building face and will deliver more impact by design than the existing park can in its current configuration. The new design will provide clearer circulation for vehicles, bicycles, and most importantly, pedestrians. Pedestrians will have more direct crosswalks to park entries, wider sidewalks, and fully accessible park amenities. The park itself has been thoughtfully designed with pathways and plazas, gathering spaces, and quiet respites, all set within a rich landscape inviting increased ecological value. This will be a space that people will want to be in, enjoy a bite while watching the bustle on Brookline Ave, find a quiet corner to take a break from the busy emergency department, meet a friend to chat in between shifts, or just to find a quiet moment to birdwatch. This is an extremely challenging project with many moving parts, and it's very difficult to absorb how all these pieces will come together. Really want to thank the commissioners for diving into what we have for months been working to understand. We think and hope that the term sheet that we've provided sets a legible roadmap to resolve any of the remaining issues and details. We know that we don't have all the answers right now, but we have truly collaborative partners on this project that we trust can help us get there. So thank you for letting me take a minute. I think the votes are the next order, unless there's any other comments. Jill, Carrie, any other comments?
I just wanted to clarify with Associate Commissioner Quealy. It sounded like you had a couple language revisions you were suggesting. I'm not clear if that was, are you satisfied with the discussion? You had asked for a may to be changed to a will and air proponents versus air rights tenants to be identified, et cetera. Are you comfortable with the result?
So in the first vote, I would ask that, excuse me, that the last line say, if plans are not materially consistent, they will be referred back to the Parks Department for further review. So
Parks Commission, I'm sorry, Parks Commission or Parks Department?
Parks Commission for further review. So that would be one change. And then under the Article 97 vote, the last line says all of which is to be constructed by the owner of One Jocelyn Place and or its air rights tenant. I would just ask that it say owner of One Jocelyn Place and its air rights tenant, because that's consistent with other language elsewhere in the document. And those are the only two provisos that I had.
Okay, and Associate Commissioner Epperson, your request about the building permit, the certificate of occupancy being provided after the park had been implemented, are you comfortable with the response you got, or did you want something?
I am. There is nothing that needs to be incorporated into the vote, but Carrie, I am asking that you become familiar with that process and that the proponents make sure to coordinate through you so you know that that's happening in 5 years.
Okay, I am in that process every hour of the day. I hope maybe in 5 years I will be as well, but I think it needs to be, you know, something that's not dependent on me sitting in the seat, obviously, right? We need to have it be a more
memorialized.
Memorialized somehow.
Yeah.
Kathy, do you think it needs to be memorialized in this actual vote language, or are you comfortable with it being memorialized in the MOU?
I would be comfortable with it being memorialized in the MOU. And I think this is the term sheet that was provided is the basis that the MOU will be built upon. So there's a lot more work we need to do to finalize that MOU.
So my recommendation would be when Parks Department staff and the commissioner reviews the final designs that we are approving today, SED are also reviewing all of the legal documents, obviously, that are being drafted. And these points that are being raised now, if they are not addressed in those documents, then the matter gets brought back to the Parks Commission. So if we need to make sure that we are memorializing in the MOU between Parks and Planning, that the certificate of occupancy will not be granted until the park is complete. If that language is not in the final term sheet, the final MOU, then the matter comes back to the Parks Commission, just as if you found the design was inconsistent. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I'm not sure where to put it. So Carrie, do you have a thought on where to put that?
Read that last sentence for us, Carrie, where we're saying that the final designs are being reviewed by Parks Department staff, and that if they are not consistent, then they come back. Read that for us so we can see if that would cover this as well.
So as I understand, you're saying that this should be added to the vote on the memorandum of understanding. And so you're asking that the final design of the park be, let me see how we're saying it with the other. If the plans for the final design of the park are not material consistent with what you have seen today, they will be referred back to the Parks Commission for final review. And that's what you want added into the MOU?
That's what I'm wondering if we need to say if the plans and business terms are not materially consistent. What do you think about that, Kathy?
Well, I'm wondering if similarly we add a sentence to the memorandum of understanding vote that says if the final MOU based on the term sheets are not materially consistent, or if the final MOU
better.
is not materially consistent with the term sheet that was reviewed today, they will be referred back to Parks Commission for further review.
That's better. That's better.
And add that to the memorandum of understanding language.
No, I think he's asking for it to be added to the vote, that will be added into the MOU.
No, I think Kathy is suggesting that the vote language of the MOU is going to have that similar language for the design approval. In the design approval vote, we say if the final park plans are not materially consistent, they come back. Kathy is suggesting we have a similar sentence in the MOU vote that says if the terms are not materially consistent, it comes back.
Okay.
Correct,
and then,
Kathy?
Okay, so I think we're trying to graph that together right now. But is that also including, or what your concern about the COO?
That's the terms that were presented here today. So when department staff and commissioner reviews final MOU, this is one of the points that they're going to look for.
And so in addition to the term sheet that was provided to the Parks Commissioners for review, adding memorialization, I guess, of the expectations around the certificate of occupancy not being issued before the park is complete. I guess I'm looking for maybe Mallory might be able to weigh in on whether we need to revise the term sheet or whether we can just make that internal note and negotiate.
I'm comfortable with the way it stands now, only because that's part of our process. In a way, we wouldn't issue, as you mentioned before, our certificate of completion for the project unless we knew that the park was constructed as it's been outlined in all of our documents. So the IMP and the board memo for the project. And I think we plan on staying in line with the process for the MOU. As we would normal course, I guess, of business. So I don't think it's necessary to change anything because we haven't fully negotiated the MOU, but that would very much be part of the MOU from our perspective anyway. And so I would say just by the nature of what our process is, that would be something that would be a term.
Okay.
But Mallory, for
Kathy, I wanted
clarification,
to-
you're suggesting that, I'm sorry, Nupur. I just wanted to clarify what Mallory said. Mallory, you said that you're anticipating the final MOU would include language that says the final certificate of completion would not be granted, therefore the certificate of occupancy would not be issued until the park is.
Well, we don't, the planning department doesn't issue the certificate of occupancy, ISD does, but we are a party, the planning department is a party to the MOU. And it is part of our process to make sure that everything that we've agreed to for the project, which this park is included as part of this project, we wouldn't issue a certificate of completion until we have verified through our design staff that everything is completed as we've reviewed in plans. That's our normal course. So I would have anticipated that would be a term in the MOU. So I'm comfortable with the way everything stands today.
Yeah,
Because
I would
last
just
sentence
say I think we
clarify
would be able to double down on it, right? As you know, Mal is correct that is our standard procedure and that is the expectation that we will be sort of upholding on our end. But it wouldn't hurt, what I'm hearing from you, Commissioner, is that it wouldn't hurt to restate that in the MOU, right? Just make it more explicit. And so Darren, if you're comfortable with it, would you mind weighing in and just sort of confirming that so we can move on?
Well, I think what's happening here is we've got a little bit of parks versus and planning going on. So William, you're asking for something through the Parks Commission's vote that will refer to an MOU term addressing the completion of the park, right? So
I'm trying
you're
to
asking for
prevent
something in the vote itself right now.
Yeah, you're 100% correct, Carrie. I'm trying to prevent a complicated proviso on the vote. So instead of that, I'm looking for agreement across the parties that the MOU, which will be between Planning Department and Parks Department.
And the proponent.
And the proponent, when that's drafted, it will include the clause, the provision that the Planning Department certificate of completion, which is a necessary component for the proponent to receive their certificate of occupancy from ISD, will not be issued by the Planning Department until the park itself is complete. Its construction and reconstruction is complete and it is open for public use. So if we here can agree that that will be in the MOU, and if Carrie revises the Parks Commission vote language regarding the MOU to say that we review to make sure that the terms are materially consistent with what we discussed today, then when the commissioner receives that final document, she can confirm that everything is consistent and we go forward. But if she finds that it has been omitted, she can bring it back to the commission.
Right. So this is Darren Baird. I am counsel for Dana-Farber, who is one of the project proponents as well. And we can confirm that we will add that to the MOU when it's finalized. we would ask that it obviously be final certificate of occupancy because there'll be construction realities between temp and final, but we can agree to that in the MOU. So.
Perfect. Then I'm satisfied without any additional proviso. Just want to make sure that our vote language, Carrie, is slightly revised, similar to the plan review language that says if not materially consistent, that we say the similar for the MOU language.
Okay.
And Carrie, we greatly appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate you too.
All right. Do we feel like we're ready for a vote?
Is Carrie ready to read the language?
Yeah, I'm just gonna have Carrie reread the language. And I think we are gonna take a roll call vote for all three.
Very good.
All right. So Interim Commissioner Baker Eclipse, would you like me to read the vote number 1?
Yes, if you would read the first vote for design review regarding 1 Jocelyn Place.
All right, and we need to read these in their entirety for the record, so bear with me. This is a vote to approve a proposed building at 1 Jocelyn Place known as the Future Cancer Hospital, which is within 100 feet of Jocelyn Park in the Longwood Medical and Academic area, as well as the associated pedestrian connectors over Brookline Avenue and Pilgrim Road, the modifications to the facades of the building situated at 440 Brookline Avenue, and the building situated at 334 Riverway, and improvements to Jocelyn Place and Jocelyn Park, all is approved by the Boston Planning and Development Agency Board vote on July 12, 2025, with the proviso that the Parks Department will review the final construction documents submitted to the Inspectional Service Department for confirmation that the same are material consistent with the plans submitted in connection with this vote. If the plans are not material consistent, they will be referred back to the Parks Commission for further review.
All right, can I just move right to vote?
You need a motion.
Can I have a motion to vote?
So moved, Commissioner.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Epperson. Can I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Commissioner Quilly. Commissioner Bollinger on the first item regarding design review.
Yay, approved. Yes.
Commissioner Epperson,
Aye.
Commissioner Couts,
Yes.
Commissioner Pierre,
Yes.
Commissioner Quilly,
Aye.
Commissioner Washington,
Aye.
and Commissioner Baker Eclipse says aye as well. Thank you so much. Carrie, if you could read the Article 97 vote language for us, please.
This is a vote to approve and consent to the City of Boston making a submission to the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs and petitioning the General Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to permit the granting to or taking by the City of Boston, acting by and through its Public Improvement Commission of highway easement for said reconfiguration of Jocelyn Place and Jocelyn Park as depicted approximately as highway easement area on that certain plan for which we do not have a title, dated for which we do not have a date, and prepared by VHB Inc., showing approximate acreage, location, and boundaries, and licensing in connection therewith to the owner of 1 Jocelyn Place and its air rights tenant for up to 54 months for the reconfiguration of Jocelyn Place and Jocelyn Park and associated site work and park improvements, and also involving areas within Jocelyn Park supporting the construction of its future cancer hospital and the reconfigured Jocelyn Place and Jocelyn Park, all of which is to be constructed by the owner of 1 Jocelyn Place and its air rights tenant.
We have a motion to vote.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Quilly and Commissioner Pierre. Commissioner Bollinger. How do
Aye.
you vote? Thank you. Commissioner Epperson.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Couts.
Aye.
Commissioner Pierre.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Quilly
Aye.
and Commissioner Washington.
Exception for the aye.
Thank you. All right, so the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Oh, sorry. And I, Commissioner Baker Eclipse vote in the affirmative, aye, and so the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Carrie, can we move on to the vote regarding the memorandum of understanding?
This is a vote to authorize the Commissioner of the Parks and Recreation Department to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the owner of One Jocelyn Place and its air rights tenant, addressing coordination of the reconfiguration of and final design of the improvements to Jocelyn Park, the licensed use of areas within Jocelyn Park, supporting the staging for construction of the future cancer hospital, and related matters, substantially on the terms provided on the term sheet for the memorandum of understanding with regard to the change in use, design, and construction of Jocelyn Park, Jocelyn Place, and Deaconess Road, dated October 26, 2025, and subject to such limitations therein prior to commencing said work with, I'll try this, Associate Commissioner Person, with the proviso that the Parks Department will review the final construction documents submitted to the Inspectional Service Department for confirmation of the park, for confirmation that the same are material consistent with the plans submitted in connection with this vote. If the plans for the park are not material consistent, they will be referred back to the Parks Commission for further review. This should be a term of the memorandum of understanding, and if it is not, it will, the vote for the memorandum of understanding will be returned back to the Parks Commission.
Kathy, thoughts on that? I'm not sure if that's correct.
I thought we would add a sentence after prior to commencing said work, and the sentence might read, if the MOU is not materially consistent with the term sheet provided, they will be referred back to the Parks Commission for further review.
Correct.
All right.
Do you want
do you want to try that?
Why
last?
why don't you read the vote then?
Okay. Okay. I will read it for the record. A memorandum of understanding to authorize the Commissioner of the Parks and Recreation Department to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the owner of One Jocelyn Place and its air rights tenant, addressing the coordination of the reconfiguration of and final design of the improvements to Jocelyn Park, the licensed use of areas within Jocelyn Park, supporting the staging for construction of the future cancer hospital and related matters, substantially on the terms provided on the term sheet for the memorandum of understanding with regard to the change in use, design, and construction of Jocelyn Park, Jocelyn Place, and Deaconess Road, dated October 26, 26, and subject to such limitations therein prior to commencing said work. If the memorandum of understanding is not materially consistent with the term sheet, they will be referred back to the Parks Commission for further review. Okay. Can I have a motion on that vote?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Couts and Commissioner Bollinger. All right, so we'll move to a vote. Commissioner Bollinger?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Epperson?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Couts?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Pierre?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Quealy?
Aye.
Thank you. And Commissioner Washington?
Aye.
Thank you. And Commissioner Baker Eclipse votes in the affirmative as well. So the motion passes unanimously. All right. I think that was our last item on the agenda. Can I have a motion to any other comments?
Kathy, before I give a motion to adjourn, I just want to express my appreciation for all of the Parks Department staff, the Parks Commission staff, as well as the Planning Department for its very thorough coordination with the Parks Department. It's much appreciated. Thank you to everybody.
Here,
Thank you. Thank you. And I also want to thank the commissioners again for their diving into this very complex project and helping us to make major improvements to the public realm, including the park at Jocelyn Place and Jocelyn Park. that will have long-lasting effects, and really appreciate your dedication to diving into all these complex issues. So thank you all. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second David Quealy's motion.
Thank you. Thank you. And
Thank you,
I
William.
think we are adjourned.
Thanks, folks. Have a great day.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
everyone.
much.
Have a great day.
Thank you.